Hey everyone, welcome to my review of Gamera vs. Zigra, which is the 7th entry in the series and what will be probably the third last video in this video series. It's been 10 months, I can hardly believe that it's coming to an end, but soon enough it will, I imagine even within a week. I'll have one more review of Gamera the Super Monster, the 8th movie in the series. And since I've already done the later ones, the final part of the video, or the final video, will be ranking overall thoughts. I'll rewatch Gamera the Brave to see if my perspective has changed on it any, because it was the first movie I saw rather than anything else, and whether that I didn't see them in order, in other words. So we'll see if my thoughts change on the more Showa era roots or traditions that it's steeped in. And yeah, but first off, let's get to the review at hand. This is Gamera vs. Zigra, and at this point, I know Dai really didn't spend a whole lot of money on this movie, and you can really tell. But at the same time, I actually had a good amount of fun with this movie. A lot of flaws to it, of course, but we'll get into that. The story is what any other Gamera movie would be, you know, either aliens, whatever comes down, a monster pops up, and you have to deal with it. Gamera is the only solution. Now, the plot progresses in a fairly predictable fashion, however, there's some really weird things to note here. More particularly, plot holes and contrivances abound. I mean, I could point out so many holes right now, it's just not funny, but take, for instance, I don't understand Zigra's plan. I mean, I realize I'm thinking far too hard about this, but that's what I do with these kinds of movies, so let's get to it. Zigra's plan makes no sense. Alright, he's going to come down and he's going to live in the seas because he's an aquatic being, and he wants to take over the Earth that way. Alright, sounds like a pretty good evil invader plan. Problem being, when he's in his spaceship, which he somehow defies shape to fit in, I guess kind of like the TARDIS, but regardless, without his spaceship, which is destroyed fairly early on, he's just a giant monster. In fact, no, he wasn't even giant. That's the crazy thing. He was not even giant. He was only giant because the water pressure, get this, the water pressure at the bottom of Japan's ocean made him abnormally large. Now, okay, how are you going to, single-handedly take over Earth that way? Were you relying on your brainwashed compatriot who can kind of snap and make people just kind of fall asleep? In which case, how did you give that person that power, by the way, if you change their brain, or hypnotize them? How do you change their brain when doing that? And I mean, secondly, even if you are this abnormally large monster, you know what his weaknesses are? His weaknesses are light and sound. Light and sound, people! I mean, first off, okay, well, maybe you couldn't attack during the day, and it's not even like, it's not even like a high-pitched sound. It's like people just going, into a different frequency. And the light in particular, he's sitting in front of a bathysphere. The bathysphere's light shining on him, can't go near it. Honestly, just set fire around your goddamn village, and even if he could come in, he would never be able to. And, considering how easily he's defeated in the end by fairly conventional weaponry, so to speak, you probably could just shoot him. And he's the worst invader ever for a lot of other reasons, too. For instance, why the fuck is he so sleepy all the time? I think this is largely because they didn't have a whole lot of money to do this movie, but there's not a whole lot of action, in particularly fight scenes between Gamera and Zigra. They don't really show that much screen time. There's technically 3 fights, meetings, but the second one, really nothing happens. I'm pretty sure that... Okay, let me just explain the scene. I'm going to be a few spoilers here, but nothing really serious. Don't worry about it. Too much. Zigra, sitting on the bottom of the ocean, is guarding a bathysphere that he's captured. And he's sitting there, he's sleeping. He's like, okay. So, Gamera comes, jets downwards through the ocean. Yeah, I know, jets in the ocean, but we've already been through this before in Gamera vs. Virus, so let's just get to it. Jets down, starts walking over in a big, grr, 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 grr. He's not tiptoeing here. And Zigra's always going, kind of like half awake, half asleep kind of eyesight. But Gamera just keeps walking. He picks up a rock and throws it right at Zigra. And you're like, okay, now there's going to be a fight. But there isn't a fight, and that's the weird thing. Because Zigra completely opens up his eyes. And then just closes them again. You're like, You just got hit by a rock. You're not gonna fight? Alright, okay, whatever. I'm pretty sure they're trying to imitate that scene where someone's kind of half asleep, half awake. But because of the lack of eye movement, they open the eyes too far and they stay open too long. I mean, you can't possibly be that awake and yet still go back to sleep that fast and not have it register in your consciousness somehow. I mean, oh, he's an alien, maybe it's different, but come on. I mean, we're still going by some laws of reality here. But at any rate, I mean, the whole scene progresses in a manner of quite a bit of hilarity. But aside from that, the story itself is fairly typical of most Gamera movies. One thing it is to note that apparently this movie was partially funded by SeaWorld, so SeaWorld is featured very prominently in the movie, and in fact, entire scenes, like there's a 3 or 4 minute scene, just a seal show. Nothing to do with the plot outside of establishing the setting of SeaWorld, where a bunch of the main characters actually work or live, but I mean, it's a nice seal show. I like seal shows. It's fun, but nothing to do with anything. And a lot of the battles with Zigra in the military are off-screen. We only really see one jet battle. And while the final fight with Gamera is pretty decent, and the suit work is okay, you can tell that they're stretching it a little. There's a lot of really, really bad wire work. The suits look fine. Zigra actually think is a pretty cool design, even though I don't understand how he changes from fish to the bipedal creature, but that's whatever. He's still a cool-looking creature, I think. But I'll get to that in a minute. More or less, though, you'd think this movie would be awful. From what I'm describing it to you, I mean, part SeaWorld attraction, really clunky scenes. But honestly, it's not that bad a movie, and I think it's largely because it's just fun. It's all like Gamera vs. Gyron in this way, I think. Getting on to characters, though, we have the Kenny, we have the parents, we have, amusingly enough, actually, there's one Zigrin, or as we learn, not, but you'll see, has a hypnotism power. Just snaps her fingers, people go to sleep. This is kind of neat outside of logical consistencies, because this is actually a really threatening villain, and it's a human villain. And particularly, Zigra himself actually has a voice as a translator thing, kind of on his nose. And it gives a little more villainous presence to him, if anything else. I think he actually succeeds maybe a little better than other villains, despite his shortcomings because of this. That was interesting, the Kenny, though, he's the Kenny, he does nothing. There's a lot of really funny moments though with the characters. They have this kind of they have this chase scene with Zigra's henchwoman, and they're running in and out of doors in a comic fashion, much like you'd find in Scooby-Doo or any old cartoon, and that's a lot of fun, admittedly. As far as the effects go, like I said, there's really not a whole lot of money spent here. It's very cheap looking. Maybe not quite as cheap as Gamera vs. Gyron, but or at least didn't seem like it. But the suit work is generally done well when it gets to it, and particularly I thought the flying was actually done pretty well. A lot of times they skimp on that. Again, Gamera vs. Gyron, because a sock puppet is thrown, but boggles the mind. But it did pretty well here, I think. Particularly the underwater scenes, while they don't really look like they're underwater. It's a different setting, if nothing else. It's a different setting, and that was quite interesting. We saw a little bit of water fighting in Gamera vs. Virus, but not too much here. And definitely he's underwater this time. So that was cool. Lastly, the sound. There's really not a whole lot to say about this. This continues. It's a fairly traditional monster movie score. There's really not a whole lot to say about it. The only difference, again, is that the Gamera theme is again present here in another form. You've jet propulsion, we know. Some great translation here. Just doesn't work out in English, so it's more funny than amusing and actually uplifting. But you look forward to hearing it after a while. You really do. It's a lot of fun. I can see how kids would really like these movies. And if you're an adult, this isn't the best Gamera movie, far from it. But in all honesty, I actually quite enjoyed Gamera vs. Zigra. Don't take it too seriously. Don't go in expecting a whole lot. But if you just go in with meager expectations, I think this will please you. I mean, I had a lot of fun with it. There's a fun monster fight, a fun monster. Gamera is in it with some pretty fun plot devices. The characters are tolerable. There's some cute, there's actually good human work, or good scenes with the humans, which is very rare in some of these movies. Overall, I would suggest it, definitely. This is not the best Gamera movie, but certainly worth your time. If you're picking up the Shout Factory DVDs, particularly I wanted to note the DVD menu for Gamera vs. Zigra is awesome. It's got little cutouts of Gamera vs. Zigra moving around with kind of monster movie music playing in the background, and each of them are kind of shuffling about behind a city background, trading projectiles, and It's just a lot of fun. At any rate, though, I would definitely check out Gamera vs. Zigra.